William Oughtred was an English mathematician and Anglican minister. After John Napier invented logarithms and Edmund Gunter created the logarithmic scales upon which slide rules are based, it was Oughtred who first used two such scales sliding by one another to perform direct multiplication and division, and he is credited as the inventor of the slide rule in 1622. Oughtred also introduced the times symbol for multiplication as well as the abbreviations sin and cos for the sine and cosine functions. Early life. Oughtred was born at Eton in Buckinghamshire, and educated there and at King's College, Cambridge, of which he became Fellow. Being admitted to Holy Orders, he left the University of Cambridge about 1603. For a living at Shalford, he was presented in 1610 to the rectory of Albury, near Guildford in Surrey, where he settled. He married Chris Skift Carroll, of the Carroll family of Tangley Hall at Wonersh, of which Lady Elizabeth Ongier, wife of Simon Carroll 1607–1619, was matriarch and then dowager until her death c. 1650. About 1628 he was appointed by the Earl of Arundel to instruct his son in mathematics. He corresponded with some of the most eminent scholars of his time, including William Alabaster, Sir Charles Cavendish, and William Gascoigne. He kept up regular contacts with Gresham College, where he knew Henry Briggs and Guntur. He offered free mathematical tuition to pupils, who included Richard Delamain and Jonas Moore, making him an influential teacher of a generation of mathematicians. Seth Ward resided with Oughtred for 6 months to learn contemporary mathematics, and the physician Charles Scarborough also stayed at Albury. John Wallis and Christopher Wren corresponded with him. Another Albury pupil was Robert Wood, who helped him get the clavish through the press. The invention of the slide rule involved Oughtred in a priority dispute with Delamain. They also disagreed on pedagogy in mathematics, with Oughtred arguing that theory should precede practice. He remained rector until his death in 1660 at Albury, a month after the restoration of Charles II. Interest in the occult. Oughtred had an interest in alchemy and astrology. The testimony for his occult activities is quite slender, but there has been an accretion to his reputation, based on his contemporaries. According to John Aubrey, he was not entirely skeptical about astrology. William Lilly, an eminent astrologer, claimed in his autobiography to have intervened on behalf of Oughtred to prevent his ejection by Parliament in 1646. In fact, Oughtred was protected at this time by Bulstrode Whitelocke. Aubrey states that he was also defended by Sir Richard Onslow. Elias Ashmole was a neighbour in Surrey. Though Ashmole's estates acquired by marriage were over the county line in Berkshire, and Oughtred's name has been mentioned in purported histories of early Freemasonry. A suggestion that Oughtred was present at Ashmole's 1646 initiation going back to Thomas de Quincey. It was used by George Wharton in publishing the Cabal of the 12 Houses Astrological by Morinus in 1659. He expressed millenarian views to John Evelyn, as recorded in Evelyn's diary, entry for 28 August 1655. Legacy. Oughtred's name is remembered in the Oughtred Society, a group formed in the United States in 1991 for collectors of slide rules. It produces the twice-yearly Journal of the Oughtred Society and holds meetings and auctions for its members. Works. Books. He published, among other mathematical works, Clavish Mathematici, in 1631. It became a classic, reprinted in several editions, and used by Wallace and Isaac Newton amongst others. It was not ambitious in scope, but an epitome aiming to represent current knowledge of algebra concisely. It argued for a less verbose style of mathematics, with a greater dependence on symbols, drawing on François Viète. Oughtred also innovated freely in symbols, introducing not only the multiplication sign as now used universally, but also the proportion sign. The book became popular around 15 years later, as mathematics took a greater role in higher education. Wallace wrote the introduction to his 1652 edition, and used it to publicize his skill as cryptographer. In another, Oughtred promoted the talents of Wren. Other works were a treatise on navigation entitled Circles of Proportion, in 1632, and a book on trigonometry and dialing, and his Opuscula Mathematica, published posthumously in 1676. He invented a universal equinoctial ring dial of 2 rings. Clavish Mathematicae, further Latin editions 1648, 1652, 1667, 1693, first English edition 1647. Circles of Proportion and the Horizontal Instrument. This was edited by his pupil, William Forster. Trigonometria with Canon Sinuum. Slide rules. Oughtred's invention of the slide rule consisted of taking a single rule, already known to Gunter, and simplifying the method used to employ it. Gunter required the use of a pair of dividers to lay off distances on his rule. Oughtred made the step of sliding 2 rules past each other to achieve the same ends. His original design of some time in the 1620s was for a circular slide rule, but he was not the first into print with this idea, which was published by Delamain in 1630. The conventional design of a sliding middle section for a linear rule was an invention of the 1650s. Sundials. He invented the double horizontal sundial, now named Oughtred type after him. A short description. The description and use of the double horizontal dial was added to a 1653 edition of the Pioneer Book on Recreational Mathematics. Recreations Mathematiques by Hendrik van Etten and Jean-Louis Chon. That translation itself is no longer attributed to Oughtred, but to Francis Malthus.